I'm going to have one hot take for you right now. I think one of Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid will be on the Minnesota Wild in the next 3 years.
Wow.
That's my hot take. I think they're going to find a way. They need a center. That's Minnesota's clear Achilles heel. That's my one hot take for the day, boys.
Okay, I like that we're doing hot takes from a horse farm. Now, Minnesota, Billy G said he's going to get active too.
I like that he said that because at the end of the day, he's right. If someone knocks your socks off with an offer, you're going to take it if you think you make your team better.
Let's be honest, Minnesota Wild fans have been patient. Painfully, frustratingly patient. They've watched their team build something real, genuine defensive depth, elite goaltending, a superstar winger who could embarrass anyone on any given night. And yet, every single postseason, the same problem surfaces like a bad habit. No true number one center. No dominant force down the middle who can anchor a championship run when it actually matters. Bill Guerin knows it. The fan base knows it. And apparently, so does ESPN's Eric Johnson, who recently made a statement on the Pat McAfee show that stopped a lot of people mid-scroll. Johnson said, flat out, that within 3 years, either Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid will be wearing a Minnesota Wild jersey. Not as a throwaway comment, not as a joke, but as a genuine hockey prediction from someone who watches this league closely. His reasoning was simple. Minnesota's ceiling is being capped by one glaring hole, and Guerin is the type of general manager who eventually finds a way to plug it, no matter what it costs. Now before you start designing McDavid's Wild alternate jersey, let's slow down and actually walk through how realistic this is, because the path from Edmonton to Minnesota is not a straight line. It's winding, complicated, and depends on a whole chain of events breaking the right way. But here's the thing, it's not impossible. And that alone makes it worth talking about. Right now, McDavid is under contract with the Oilers through the 2026-27 season. He signed a 2-year extension worth $25 million before last season began, and that contract includes a full no-movement clause. That means McDavid goes nowhere without McDavid's permission. So if you were hoping he'd show up in St. Paul next October, that's simply not happening. Edmonton controls his situation entirely for at least one more season. But what happens after that is where things get genuinely interesting. The Oilers have come agonizingly close to winning a Stanley Cup. They've made deep runs, created real moments, and McDavid has been transcendent throughout. But close doesn't build a legacy the way a championship does. If Edmonton comes up short again this season and enters 2027-28 without a new McDavid extension in place, the organization faces an impossible choice. Do they let the greatest player on the planet skate into the final year of his deal and potentially walk away for nothing? Or do they open the door, just slightly, to trade conversations? That's the scenario. That's where Minnesota enters the picture. Because here's what Guerin has been doing quietly behind the scenes. He's kept his first-round picks. Minnesota still holds their selections in 2027 and 2028. His protected draft capital, developed prospects, and resisted the urge to mortgage the future for a quick fix. Wild owner Craig Leopold even gave that philosophy a name, keeping the powder dry. The idea being that if you wait long enough, a truly transformational name becomes available, and you want to be positioned to strike when it does. Guerin also said this week that nobody on his roster is untouchable heading into this offseason. Nobody. That kind of statement coming from a GM means something. It signals flexibility. It signals willingness to restructure. And it signals that if the right player becomes available at the right price, he's going to find a way to make the math work. Now let's talk assets, because any McDavid trade would require an extraordinary package. Jesper Wallstedt is already drawing significant interest from other organizations. He's young, he's talented, and if his sophomore season in Minnesota validates what scouts already believe about his ceiling, his trade value climbs even higher. Meanwhile, Danila Yurov spent this season adjusting to the speed and physicality of NHL playoff hockey. A full year of experience under his belt could produce exactly the kind of breakout that makes him a centerpiece of any package. And then there's the younger pipeline, Charlie Stramel, Adam Bennock, Riley Heidt, players who haven't fully arrived yet but are trending upward in ways that matter when you're assembling a trade offer. The point is, Minnesota's prospect cupboard is not empty. And if Guerin decides to make one of his current stars available alongside that prospect capital, the offer becomes something an Oilers front office might genuinely have to consider. And here's the part that makes this scenario more believable than it sounds on the surface. McDavid would actually want to be there. Look at what's already in place. Kirill Kaprizov signed an 8-year, $136 million extension that runs through the 2033-34 season. Quinn Hughes, after everything it took to get him to Minnesota, is expected to seek a long-term deal to align with his brother Jack's timeline in New Jersey. Brock Faber is locked up through 2032-33. Matt Boldy through 2029-30. This is not a team asking McDavid to come in and rebuild something from scratch. This is a team asking him to come in and finish something that is already close to complete. The financial side also works out in a way that feels almost designed. McDavid becomes a free agent in the summer of 2028. Minnesota is currently projected to have over $72 million in cap space at that point. A core built around Kaprizov, Hughes, Boldy, Faber, and McDavid is the kind of roster combination that would make the entire league uncomfortable. Yes, it sounds like fantasy. But think about where Wild fans were mentally when Quinn Hughes was just a name being whispered in trade rumors. The idea of landing him felt unrealistic. And then it happened. Not because Minnesota got lucky, but because Guerin built a situation attractive enough that a player of that caliber actually wanted to be part of it. McDavid's situation is different, obviously. The scale is larger, the contract implications are heavier, and the no-movement clause means his own decision carries enormous weight. But if Edmonton's championship window closes without a title and McDavid finds himself staring at a franchise-level crossroads, Minnesota will have the assets, the cap space, and the supporting cast to make a genuinely compelling case. Johnson's prediction gives it 3 years. 3 years for Edmonton's situation to deteriorate enough that conversations begin. 3 years for Minnesota's prospects to grow into real trade currency. 3 years for Guerin to survey the landscape, exhaust every other option at center, and potentially arrive at the conclusion that the only move worth making is the biggest one available. Wild fans have watched this organization inch closer and closer to genuine contention. The pieces are real. The structure is there. The only missing ingredient has always been that dominant number one center who changes the complexity of every single series you play in April and May. Maybe it ends up being a different player. Maybe a deal gets done this summer that solves the problem without requiring anyone to dream this big. But if it doesn't, and if the next 2 seasons unfold in a way that makes McDavid available, Minnesota will be ready. The powder has been kept dry for exactly this reason. And if that day comes, if Connor McDavid actually puts on a Wild jersey, nobody will be calling it a fantasy anymore.